Hey there everybody! Today we are going to be playing Ark Survival Evolved on the new Fjordur map. I'm currently playing this with mods via Steam, but it will soon be an official map, which means everyone can play it, including console players as well as those on PC. This is exciting as it's a really cool map and I can't wait to check it out. This is actually my first time playing on it, aside from a few test runs, so I'm really looking forward to it. The first thing I'm going to do is head over to this destroyed raft that I discovered in one of the test runs, and destroy some of these crates in order to acquire some metal tools early on. This does seem to be a bit of a game-breaking strategy, as getting metal tools before I even hit level 1 is very crazy and allows me to skip a lot of the early game. But oh well, this is a timed 100 days challenge, which means I have to beat it as quickly as possible. To actually complete this challenge, I need to beat every boss that is available on this map. This includes all of the exclusive bosses that have been added by the map mod, as well as the vanilla bosses that can be fought through the obelisk as normal. This is a lightly modded playthrough and does include a few quality of life mods. These include dino storage, which pretty much just makes better cryopods, as well as a stack mod, which will reduce the weight of items and allow the stacks to be bigger. It also includes Ark Additions, which is a big mod that adds a few awesome new creatures that all have heaps of effort put into them and are completely unique. However, these are balanced to work with the vanilla game, and it won't make the game too much easier or harder. I've also included the awesome teleporters mod, which allows you to craft portals and a remote that mean you can easily transport yourself between places, as this map is massive and I do not want to spend all of my time flying back and forth across it. Finally, the Fjordur mod does introduce a few more creatures of its own, along with the additional map, so these will also all be included in the... My first major goal on day 1 is to craft up as much narcotics as I can. This serves a dual purpose, as it won't only allow me to tame creatures as soon as I can craft trank arrows, but it will also help me level up really quickly, as narcotics provide heaps of XP for crafting them. To do this, I need to get a starter base crafted. This includes a Mortar and Pestle, which is a crafting station used to make narcotic. So I'll just head down the beach here and collect some hide and fight this Dilophosaurus with my new pike, as this will give me hide when I kill them, and I need hide to make my Mortar and Pestle, as well as a few other starting items. I'll also kill this Lystrosaurus. This will give me some more hide as well as XP, and don't forget I need to keep leveling up as quickly as possible so I can use engram points to unlock new items. So I'm just going to speed this up as I continue to grind out levels by killing the creatures on the beach. I need to get to level 9 in order to craft bowlers and a slingshot, which I can then use to start taming my next creature. So I just need to get this hide, and already I can level up to level 11, which is past what I need, and this is great as it means I can make bowlers. So I'll head inland now to try and gather some fiber and get what I need to make bowlers and a slingshot. So my next goal will be to tame up a small creature that can gather berries, such as a Parasaur or a Moschops. I can already see a pair of Parasaurs across the field there, so I will try and tame whichever one of those two is the lower level. This one here is a level 20, which seems pretty good. Just check this other one though, and it is a higher level, so I'll go for the level 20. I want to get a low level because it means they'll be much easier to knock out, as a bowler and a slingshot together won't be able to knock out a high level, as the bowler will break and allow the Parasaur to run away before I'm able to knock it out. I'll just craft 2 slingshots so I'm actually able to knock it unconscious in case one breaks, and then I will equip these onto my hotbar and begin the taming process. Okay, we should now be ready to go. I'll just run over to this Parasaur here, as I think it was the level 20. Yeah, it is, so I'll just hit it with a bowler, rendering it immobile for a few seconds, and then hit it in the face with stones from my slingshot, which should hopefully knock it out. I just hope that I don't kill it accidentally, as the slingshot has a very bad torpor to damage ratio, and can often accidentally kill creatures before you knock them out. I can already see blood starting to form on the Parasaur, so I'm getting worried, as this indicates as it's closer to death. However, it falls over before it dies, which is great, and this means I can now put food into its inventory, which it will eventually eat and then tame up. I'll feed it with medja berries, which are not the best food, but they are the best out of the 4 basic berries you can get, and I'll start gathering the materials I need for a set. Alright, I'm back. The Parasaur is tamed up. I'll just name it First Tame to signify that this was the first creature we ever got, and I've already crafted a saddle, so that should be good to go. Next, I'll need to start looking for a small spot where I can build my beginner base. I certainly won't be living here for the entire series, but I will need somewhere to set up my bed and mortar and pestle to craft narcotics, and also so I can respawn if I die, which is very likely. Like, come on, this is Ark, you die a lot in the early game. Now, I'll just set up my Parasaur so I can ride it by equipping the saddle that I just crafted, and as I search for a base, I'm going to use its basic attack on bushes to collect berries. This is why I tame my Parasaur, as it is much more efficient gathering berries using it than just with my hands, and I'm going to need a lot of narco berries in order to make narcotics. So I'm just going around looking at the other creatures. There doesn't seem to be anything dangerous around here, which is great, when I notice this massive archway. Now, this looks like a really good base location, because you can only be accessed from certain sides, and this means that I should be safe from the majority of carnivores and other dangerous things while I'm up there. So I'm just going to gather the materials I need in order to craft a simple bed and a thatch foundation, as this will let me sleep and respawn. So I'll just put these together, and then I'm going to run up onto that archway, and we should be able to put together our base. Collecting berries as I go, of course. Okay, so I'm now up on the archway, and let's just put these onto my hotbar so I can place them down, and then we should be ready. I've also just crafted up a mortar and pestle using a lot of stone and some hide, and we can use this to make narcotics. However, there is one more thing I need for narcotics, and this is spoiled meat, which can be acquired simply just by waiting for regular meat in your inventory to spoil. I've already got some normal meat from killing the creatures down on the beach, so I simply need to wait until it spoils. While I do this, I think I'm going to go around and have a look if there's any other good creatures I can tame. Maybe something like a raptor or an iguanodon would be good. I just used a basic trick to jump off the ledge without dying. This involves hopping off while on the back of a tame creature, and then I can dismount right before I hit the ground to negate any fall damage. I'm now getting attacked by an Ichthyornis, which is annoying. These stupid seagulls swoop down on you and steal your food. So I just need to try and get some berries though. It's not doing too much damage to me, so I should just be able to tank it. Okay, I'm back quite a while later now collecting metal. I actually got my meat stolen by those stupid Ichthyornis, which meant that it couldn't spoil. So I'm just going to bring you back quickly for the first death of the series. I'm trying to parkour my way down here without falling, but I slip off the ledge and I die. Not really much to say here, I was just being dumb, and that is the first death of the series. Okay, we're now back much later on in the day. It's already starting to get dark, and I have gathered myself some more meat, but it is not spoiled yet, so I think that's going to have to wait for day 2. However, it is getting dark very quickly now, and it will soon be pitch black. There we go. As the night sky becomes dark, we can see all the drops, my death beacon, and the strange obelisks in the distance. Fjordur has obviously reskinned what you're traditionally used to in Ark, and they all look very nice. There also seems to be a giant tree in the distance, which is cool. Okay, we're now back for day 2. I'm just crafting myself some hide clothes quickly, as I nearly died overnight because it was so cold. I'm going to put these on before I freeze to death, and it will also make me look a bit better and add some additional protection in case I get attacked, which is nice as well. So, it's morning now. We can see that the sky is still a little dark, but I'm gonna head out on my Parasaur again. Okay, we're back, and I'm just using a little trick to split all of my meat by clicking the square button on a PlayStation controller. What this will do is that when a single unit of meat spoils, it will instead spoil the entire stack, as they're now all split up. How Ark works is that when the spoil countdown runs out, the top item on a stack will spoil, but everything else will be the same. So, by splitting up all my meat into individual stacks, I can make it spoil much quicker. Alright, some time has passed, and all of the meat is about to spoil, so I'll just leave my inventory, and there we go. I've also spotted this tech Parasaur, which I'm going to try and kill in order to acquire the element and the metal ingots that it will drop. So I'll just craft a bowler quickly, immobilize it, and then shoot it in the head a few times with my crossbow. This should kill it quite quickly as it's only a low level. Yep, there we go, it only took 2 shots. Now I'm going to harvest this with my pickaxe to get as much scrap metal as I can. This will make my life much easier quite soon, as it means I can craft metal without actually finding metal rocks and mining them. Now with that done, I can begin to craft some narcotics. So this requires me to put the spoiled meat and the narco berries into the mortar and pestle, and then I can just start crafting the narcotics. One thing you also may have noticed is that I've put the cartoon skin on my Parasaur. It looks very weird and I don't really like it, but I've never used it before, so I may as well just keep it on there. I'm now 1 level off metal, but no, that level just came in due to XP from crafting narcotics. So, I'll just get what I need at level 20 and get the engrams for the forge, smithy, and the pickaxe and hatchet. Because even though I already have them, I will probably need to repair or craft new ones in the future when these ones break. So I'm just going to grind out the materials for the forge and the smithy, and then I will be back. Alright, now got a refining forge crafted up, so I'll just place that down on my foundation, and then we can start smelting the metal we collected earlier. So I'll just set this up. I also need to use wood as a fuel so the fire can burn, so I'll put all of that in there, and then light the forge. By now we should also have enough narcotics to start crafting trank arrows. I'll just check that quickly. Where did I put it? Oh, there we are, there's some levels. We're now level 21, which means we can make trank arrows. There they are. I'll also just get the engrams for fur armor, as this will come in useful later when we want to go into the snow biome. Okay, so here's the mortar and pestle. We've got a heap of narcotics already, but more are on the way. And I will just use them to tip the arrows I already have with tranquilizer, and this means I can now shoot these from my crossbow to inflict way more torpor than I could previously with my slingshot. With all of that done, we can now start searching for the next creature I want to tame, a Tyranidon. This time, I just don't want a low level one, I want something high, preferably level 120 or more. This one here is only a level 85, which isn't quite what I want, so I'm going to keep searching. Luckily, there's heaps of Pteranodons around this area, so I shouldn't have any trouble finding a high level one. This one over here looks like it's about to land, so I'll go and check that out. This leads us on to the next death of the series. I'm chasing that Pteranodon, and I jump off the cliff, and I'm about to use the same full damage negation strategy that I normally do, but I jump off way too early for some reason and nearly kill myself, and this Ichthyornis is now aggroed onto me and is attacking me, and it kills me. The stupid seagull kills me. I try to whistle my Parasaur, but it comes too late, and that is the second death of the series. A bit later on, I'm still searching to Pteranodons, and I die again. You can see that Microraptor over there? That thing is going to be the death of me later. It jumps up and uses its annoying ability to knock me off the back of my mount. This stuns me for 10 seconds and prevents me from moving, and my Parasaur is on passive, so it won't help me. I bring out my pike and try to fight the Microraptor, but I'm losing so much health, so I try to jump back onto my Parasaur. However, this was exactly the wrong thing to do, as the Microraptor gets up again straight away and stuns me off. These things are so annoying, and I really do not like them, especially if you get killed off the back of a T-Rex or something. It's just unfair. A bit later on, I've still had no luck, so I come back to the level 85 Pteranodon we saw earlier. It's just about to land, so I hit it with a bowler, and then I start to trank it out using my crossbow and tranquilizer arrows. Pteranodons have a headshot multiplier, which means you can do more damage to them if you hit them in the head. I'm also just going to whistle my Parasaur onto passive, so it doesn't accidentally attack the Pteranodon while I'm hitting it. Okay, now I just need to go grab some meat in order to tame it up, as Pteranodons are carnivores. If possible, I would like to get prime meat, which drops from larger creatures. This will mean that it tames up quicker and with higher efficiency, and ends up as a larger overall level. You can see a Brachiosaurus over there, which would drop Prime, but those things are huge, have a lot of health, and do a lot of damage, so I'm not going to mess with that yet. There's also a Carnotaurus, but that's chasing some Pteranodons. I'll also keep looking for another Pteranodon, as it's possible I find either one that's of a higher level or of the opposite gender, and in that case I can start breeding them. A little bit later, we are back at the tree where I knocked out the previous Pteranodon, and I've got some meat now, so I'm going to feed it up and tame it. I access its inventory and put the meat in. However, it is not going to tame up yet. Pteranodons take quite a while to tame. So I get off and leave in search of another Pteranodon, possibly. A little bit later on, we have the first near miss of the series. I'm looking for more Pteranodons, and I'm near the Brachy, when suddenly a Carnotaurus comes out of nowhere and begins attacking me. This thing is quite a high level, but I managed to de-aggro it by getting it to hit the Brachy and fight that. However, the Brachy nicks me as I pass underneath it as well, and this nearly kills my Parasaur. However, the Brachy easily kills the Carno, and I never hit it, so then it goes back to being neutral. That was a little too close. I also decide to harvest up this Carno with my pickaxe, as it can drop prime meat, which is a resource that is great for taming carnivores, and gives them more efficiency and also speed than what you would get with normal meat. I check that Tyranidon, and it's only a level 15, so I leave it, and I check this next one up here as well. This one turns out to be a 135, which is really high. It's also got cool colors, so I equip tranquilizer arrows onto my crossbow and begin knocking it out. It only takes 3 arrows, as Pteranodons have low torpor, but then disaster strikes. I accidentally shoot it after it's been knocked unconscious, which decreases its taming efficiency. This means it'll come out at a lower level than it would have otherwise. However, it's still a 135, so I tame it, and I give it the prime meat. Just like that, day 2 is beginning to come to a close as it gets dark. However, I continue my search for Pteranodons, and get my Medja berries stolen by an Ichthyornis. The night comes on very quickly, and suddenly it gets way too cold. I've set up night so it only lasts for a few minutes and simply serves as a way to tell the difference between the multiple days. And that draws the end of day 2 as I see the giant tree in the distance. Alright, it's day 3 and my Pteranodon has just woken up as I'm getting attacked by another Ichthyornis. This one came out at a decent level given that it got hit, so I'm quite happy with it. I get it to follow me, and then I start heading back towards my base and where the other Pteranodon was knocked out. I pick up my other Pteranodon as well, and then we continue back to base. Back at base now, I place a newly crafted smithy in my hotbar, and then I place it down on my little shack. Next, I'm going to go and tell my Pteranodons to stop, so that they land somewhere, and because I have a male and a female, this means I can get them to try and breed. Luckily, they choose to land quite close to each other, but it's not quite close enough, so I punch this one to move it a little way towards the other one. However, I also need to enable mating on them so that they can breed. Once this happens, there will be a short time before they start laying an egg, and then after that I'll need to place torches down so I can hatch the egg. Okay, now that they're both in position, they are going to start mating, and I'll be back once we have an egg. Okay, we're back. I've crafted a bunch of torches, and I've also collected the egg from the Pteranodon. I can use these torches to generate heat, as the Pteranodon eggs need a certain amount of heat to incubate, and this area is quite cold, so it's not enough to do it just by placing them out in the open. To do this, I put some wood inside the torches so I can light the fire by splitting stacks, and then I light the fires. I also throw the Pteranodon egg out onto the ground so it can start incubating. However, it's not quite warm enough yet, so I pick up the egg again so it doesn't die, and craft a few more torches. I place these down in a circle, so that the egg gets the maximum warmth when placed in the middle of it, and then I put wood in them and start the fire. Okay, it's a bit later and the egg is just about to hatch, and there we have a baby Pteranodon. It only came out at a 153, which is quite low based on the level of the parents, but I'm still going to try and raise and imprint it. It's also got some cool red colouring, which is nice. Now it's about to have its final imprint, however, it wants kibble. This is an advanced taming food which I can't craft, so I can't give it, so I give up on this Tyranidon and get another egg to begin hatching another one. This next Tyranidon only wants an Amar berry for its imprint food, and this I can give it. Luckily it wasn't one of the types that was stolen by an Ichthyornis, so I still have them. And just like that, we have a fully imprinted Pteranodon. This one also came out at a much higher level of 177, which is good, as this means it'll have higher stats somewhere. It also got the same red colouring, which is interesting, as I didn't see this on any of the parents. Could be a mutation, but that would be surprising to roll the same one twice in a row. Now, the next hurdle is crafting a saddle. To do this, I have to go around and kill Stegosaurus, Pachyrhinosaurus, Triceratops, and various insects in order to get the chitin or keratin that they drop. I start off with this Stegosaurus over here by whistling my new army of Pteranodons to attack it, and then going in and supporting them with my Parasaur. The Pteranodons don't do much damage individually, but together they manage to take the Stegosaurus out without taking too much damage themselves. Luckily, the Stego's tail swipes stay quite close to the ground and miss the Pteranodons the majority of the time. I find another Stegosaurus and repeat the same process again, whistling my Pteranodons to attack it. However, there's also a swarm of Meganeura around here, and I hope that they're going to drop much more chitin than the Stegosaurus would. After this one's dead, I should hopefully be able to make the saddle. However, this is a higher level Stego, so it takes a bit longer to kill. It also manages to use its new ability and stun some of my Pteranodons by impaling them with its tail. However, this locks it in place and prevents it from attacking the other ones for a little while, so it isn't too big of a deal. Just like that, the 130 Stego is down, and I harvest it with my pickaxe. Then I need to go and check the inventories of my Pteranodons, as they would have harvested the Meganeura corpses. With that done, I can now craft my Tyranidon Saddle, but before doing so, I name my Pteranodon that I'm going to ride around on Burb, because why not? It's a good name-ish. Then I craft the Tyranidon Saddle, and nearly die to a raptor by the looks of it, but lucky my Pteranodon saved me. I equip the Tyranidon Saddle onto my Pteranodon, and then we are good to fly. I whistle my Pteranodons to follow me and my Parasaur, and I take everyone back to base. Once everyone's back at base, I begin to warm up for the night, as it's going to be cold as usual. So I light the torches, and that keeps me from dying. Tomorrow we will begin a new day and hopefully look for some other creatures to The next morning I head out on my Pteranodon and begin looking for crystal. I can use crystal to make a spyglass, which is a useful tool that allows me to check the levels of different creatures from a distance. However, I need to stop my Pteranodon regularly so it can regain its stamina, as this will quickly run out, and if it does so in mid-air, my Pteranodon will be forced to land. This could be disastrous if there are carnivores on the ground, as I will be helpless until I regain my stamina. I fly up onto the snowy mountains, as I assume that there will be crystal here. However, there's also a bunch of metal, which is good to know in the future if I need to collect it. However, it's not what I'm looking for, so I keep going. As soon as I crest over the hill, it becomes freezing cold. But, just down in the corner of my screen, I notice a few rocks. These look like crystals, but you never know until you mine them. I check, and yes, we're getting crystal. I only need 2 to make a spyglass, but I grab some more anyway, in case I ever need it later. I craft the spyglass, and I stick it on my hotbar. Sometime later, I set out again from my base and decide to go and explore the snowy area of the island that I'm living on. I just acquired some flak armor from a supply drop, which should hopefully keep me a little bit more insulated than the hide that I'm currently wearing. I use my new spyglass to check the level of this Brachiosaurus, which comes out at a level 90. There's no chance I'll be able to tame one of those guys yet, but it would be a cool thing to do later on if I were to find a high level. As you can see, I'm no longer freezing to death in the snow biome, which is good, and I pump a few levels into the stamina and into the health of my Pteranodon, just so that it can last a bit longer and hopefully survive an attack if that were to happen. The snow biome tends to be really dangerous, and creatures such as these Argentavis and Daedons are everywhere. Almost everything is aggressive, and almost everything can kill my Pteranodon. My only advantage is that I'm fast and can fly, so I should hopefully be able to avoid everything. None of these creatures are high levels, so I move on. Sometime later, I discover a massive cave set into the side of the mountain. However, it's even colder in here than it is outside, so I need to leave quickly. But in the time I'm here, I see that this is a massive flat area, and could be a really cool base location. I do double check in the back in case there's a further cave that might have an artifact or a dungeon type thing, but there's nothing there. It's just a cool base location. So I turn around and I leave. Later on, I'm flying around this river when I see something down on the riverbed. A Baryonyx. These creatures are really strong and are perfect for crawling through dungeons and caves. So, I decide to try and tame it, as it was also a level 150, which means it'll have really good stats. To do this, I need to build a trap, which means collecting lots of stone, wood, and thatch in order to build something that the creature can't break. Towards the end of the day, I get knocked off my mount by a Purlovia, as I was flying back towards the Baryonyx. Previously, I'd decided to go and try find my trank arrows, as I didn't have quite enough of them on me to knock out the 150 Baryonyx, so I had to go back to my base and craft more. Thankfully though, the Purlovia was a low level, and my Tyranidon took care of it pretty easily, after it got away from the initial stun. However, I got my pike ready just in case, but there was no need. And just like that, day 4 came to a close, and I flew back to the Baryonyx overnight. By the time I arrive back at the riverbed, it's well into the next morning, so I begin placing down my trap. Previously, I'd scared away all the dangerous creatures that were on the riverbed, including a Carnotaurus, a couple of terrorbirds, and a Microraptor. Now that these were gone, I would hopefully just be able to lure the Baryonyx into the trap, and once it was stuck, I would be able to tame it up easily. I just made a few modifications to make sure there wasn't too large a gap, and the Bary couldn't escape, and then I placed on the gate frames, which would serve as the end. This one here would not be opened and would just serve as a wall so the Bary could escape. The next one, however, I placed and then opened, as this was where the Bary would run in. The plan was it would run in here and then I would shut the gate behind it and trap it in, and it wouldn't be able to break out of the stone either, because Baryonyxes are not able to damage stone structures. After an embarrassingly long time, I finally managed to get the Baryonyx into the trap, when it literally just disappeared into thin air. I have no idea what happened here, but it just disappeared. I had a quick look around the area, but I couldn't find it anywhere. This was so annoying, as it was a 150, and I had already placed this trap that was by now past its pickup period, and I'd have to destroy it if I wanted to move it. So I ended up deciding to tame a Carnotaurus that was around the area that was a 130, as I already had the trap and the trank arrows, and it would feel bad to come home empty-handed. Eventually, I decided to just go on foot to lure the Carnotaurus into the trap, as I was having no luck doing it with the Tyranidon, which would often get stuck in the Carno once he'd been lured in. So I opened the gate and sat right next to it, ready to close it, and he just got in as the gate closed behind him, and then I ran out through the gap. Thankfully, the Carno was now stuck in the trap, and I could begin knocking him out. It took quite a while and a vast majority of my trank arrows to get him down, as these things have decent health and quite high torpor. However, it was worth it in the end. Eventually, I knocked him out, and after going and killing a low-level Rex to get the meat to feed him, I opened the dinosaur gate and fed my Carno. And then I accidentally closed it, because the buttons are the same for accessing the inventory and interacting with the gate, but oh well. I put the meat in its inventory and he instantly tamed up, because killing the Rex had taken me quite a while. Cool. However, now I needed to bring him home, and this was difficult, as I couldn't carry him with my Pteranodon, and it was way too long a distance to walk. It wasn't until day 6 that I got my Carno home. In the end, I had chosen to make a soul gun and soul trap from the Dino storage mod. This is pretty much a better cryopod and allows you to put the dinosaur into your inventory and carry them home. I simply shot it with the gun to capture it and then flew home on the Tyranidon and threw him out again. Now I just had to craft a Carno saddle, which was pretty easy to do. All I needed was a bit more fiber. I was out giving my Carno a test drive and killing a bunch of creatures to gain XP. I was fighting a terror bird that had previously been attacking a Dodicarus, when I thought that I may as well go and tame the Dodicarus, as I would need heaps of stone in the future. Dodicarus are really good creatures, as they can harvest heaps of stone, often getting 400 or more stone per tail swipe on my server settings. So I started tranking it out, making sure to only hit its tail and head, and avoiding its armored shell. I got attacked by some flies, but I hopped on my car. Back at base, after taming up the Dodic, I craft a saddle using some metal, fiber, and hide, and then I just organize my smithy. As you can see, I've also collected a few other saddles from supply drops around the place, but they aren't for any good creatures that I intend to tame. Next, I just throw out my Dodicarus, and then I can put the saddle on it. As you can see, the Dodicarus is now harvesting upwards of 300 stone per attack, which is insane. This will make it much easier to craft stone structures, both for traps and for base building. The next morning, I set out in search of an interesting cave or dungeon that I can use to test out my Carnotaurus. I spot a Dinosuchus on the way, which is an interesting creature and extremely dangerous as well that is added by the Archeditions mod. I also see a Therizinosaur, which turns out to be a level 140, which is really good. These things are amazing for fighting bosses, but I still think it's a little too early on in the playthrough to be taming one. I soon found a massive structure that was built into the side of the mountain. If this wasn't a cave, I don't know what is. I try to fly inside with my Pteranodon, but I soon get kicked off, as many caves won't allow you to enter them while using flyers. So I throw out my Carno instead and give him a test spin. He actually moves quite fast, which is good, so I delve deeper into the cave. Straight away I notice that it is boiling hot in here, which isn't going to work, because this armor is hot. I try taking off my clothes to keep a bit cooler, but it's still hot enough that I'm taking continuous damage, so I decide to pump a few levels into Fortitude to see if that can make me more resilient. However, I have no luck, and I'm still taking heaps of damage. I just have a quick look around the corner to see that there's heaps of lava, which explains the heat, so I turn around and leave, and decide to try and make some ghillie armor instead. Luckily, there's a Hesperornis on the lake right outside the cave, so I don't need to go back to my base to get polymer and craft the ghillie armor. So I just kill it with my Pteranodon, harvest it to get the polymer and some of the hide that I need, and then I just go on to land to get the fiber as well. I already have enough hide, so that didn't be too much an issue, so I get my Pteranodon to follow me, and I learn the engram for ghillie armor. This armor will keep me much cooler in the cave, which will be necessary if I'm going to explore further. Luckily it isn't too expensive to make, and I just need to get some fiber, and then I can craft it. Now that I've got the ghillie armor, I can safely go back into the cave, and I'll be at a temperature where I'm not continuously taking damage, which is great. I set out across this sketchy looking bridge. At one point I thought I was going to fall through, because as you're about to see, there are some holes in this section. That was scary. Well, I continue going, and along the way I find this huge underground room that could easily fit a Titanosaur or even a Titan. These dangerous minecart track-filled tunnels. This sunlight-filled altar that looks like it's from Lord of the Rings or something. Sadly, there wasn't any loot here though, even though it looked like the kind of room where you'd find an artifact or a cave drop. I also passed over the top of this deep trench that was filled with glowing plants that looked like they were from Aberration. However, I didn't go down there yet, as I still wanted to see what was across this bridge. Turns out, it only led to an alternate exit to the cave, so I turned around again and went back to the trench. Back in the trench, I had a quick look around, but I didn't find anything of interest. there was not a single living creature down here, and while there were some harvestable nodes for rare mushrooms and crystal, there weren't any other mentionable resources either, including the gems from Aberration. So, I turned around and left the cave, feeling somewhat disappointed, as I hadn't found any interesting loot or even creatures down here. Turns out, it had passed one day while I was underground, so it was now day 8. As I was flying back home over the mountains, I noticed an interesting creature from the Archeditions mod, a Cryolophosaurus. I didn't realize, however, that this thing could actually hit me while I was up in the air. It was only a level 55, so I left it alone, but it somehow managed to snipe my Pteranodon and slow it down. However, the Cryolophosaurus got attacked by a horde of direwolves, so it didn't end up being a danger to me. Later on, I decided to try my luck and attempt to fly across the ocean. My Tyranidon had enough stamina to do it, which was great, and across the other side, I discovered a golden forest, some more mountains, some plains, and another pine forest. I didn't find any high-level Carnos, which was sad, as I was looking for one to try and breed with the one I currently had and make an army, but oh well, I did end up finding something else later on. The golden forest was cool, but there wasn't too many creatures spawning here, so I moved on pretty quickly and continued down the coast. The regular forest wasn't too different to what I'd already left on the previous island, though it did seem to have a few more interesting spawns, including Gallimimus, Terrorbirds, and Carnotaurus. However, none of the Carnos I saw were a high level, so I didn't tame or kill any of them. However, I did notice this massive hole up in the mountain, and it looked like a cave or dungeon of some kind, so I decided to check it out. However, it was actually just a patron shrine, where all of the map's donors and the people who had helped fund it had their names written on the wall. It was a nice way to thank them, and a cool little location, and I really liked finding this. A bit later on, I come across the plains, and this area had Dinonicus, which was some small raptor-like dinosaurs that could easily be tamed by stealing their eggs from a nest. So, I hit the parents to lure them away from the nest, and then flew up to de-aggro them, and went back to the nest so I could steal the eggs safely. It's pretty easy once you have a Pteranodon, but it is actually very difficult if you have a tame that can't fly. I took both eggs without checking their levels, as I wanted to make sure that I didn't die if the parents decided to come back. However, none of them were high levels, so I continued looking for a Carnotaurus. Soon after this, I saw a castle up on top of one of the plateaus. In here, I straight away noticed that there were a couple of Allosaurus, but they hadn't aggroed onto me yet. I checked the level of the alpha, and he was a 150. This was insane, as it meant that I could get a max level Allosaurus, and Allos are really good strong creatures, especially once you have them in a pack, as this gives them a damage bonus and allows the alpha to use a special attack that inflicts bleed. None of the other members were a high level though, so I decided to leave them. There was also a T-Rex, but that was a low level too. And in addition to this, I didn't think I had enough resources to tame an Allosaurus yet, so I continued on. Until I saw an Alpha Rex down on the plateau, which was scary. Those things are super dangerous, but I didn't have what I needed to take one down yet, despite the fact that they would drop some really As it began getting dark, I stole some more Dinonicus eggs from this nest where the eggs were hidden inside a bush. Previously, I'd been attacked by a couple of Dinonicus that I hadn't seen after luring the other ones off of a cliff, and my armor had broken, so I would need to repair that later if I wanted to survive the night. However, it got dark pretty quickly, and then it entered into... I continued exploring the plains for the rest of day 9 until I found another pack of Allosaurus. I was excited this time because the alpha of this pack was a level 145 female. This was crazy as it meant that I could tame that 150 male as well and have a max level Allosaurus breeding pair, which would be perfect for making an army. I decided to check out this little village I saw as well, but I didn't find any interesting loot here. I decided to try and lure the two lesser Allosaurus away from their 145 alpha. To do this, I just hit them and then flew away as they chomped at my butt. It wasn't too hard as the alpha had fallen off a cliff, so there wasn't a chance it would be able to follow me. I lured them over here into this little ditch and then flew straight upwards to break their aggro. However, they'd already targeted something else, so we were good. I decided to lure them a little bit further on, just to be safe, but this was already more than enough, and I would be good to start taming the 145 female. My only concern was that I wouldn't have enough trank arrows and darts to do it yet, but that could be fixed. I could easily just go back to my base and craft some more, despite the long flight. So, I set off back to the 145 and started taming it. I quickly put together a trap that I had built using the stone from the Dodicarus. I hoped that the Allosaurus would fit through these small dinosaur gates, but I wasn't actually 100% sure, so it was definitely a bit of a risk. I placed them on this raised plateau so that I could easily lure the Allosaurus up here and get it to run through the gates. I just put the trap together in the same way that I did for the Baryonyx, and just checked that there weren't any big gaps that the Allosaurus could escape through. That was all looking good, so I put the doors onto my hotbar, and then I equipped them onto the trap. There we are, and there are the doors. Same as last time, I would leave this one open and the other one closed. My Pteranodon kept bashing me away with its wings, so I couldn't mount it, but I went to go and see the Allosaurus and lure it closer to the trap, when I realized that I'd actually left the back door open as well, so I went and fixed that, and then got locked outside, and messed around with the button as I tried to interact with the door and also mount my Tyranidon. I also decided to make a Thatch Foundation and bed in case I died, and I placed this a short distance away so I could respawn if I had to. I eventually managed to get the Allosaurus into the trap by hitting it and luring it over. However, it did take a while as this thing kept bouncing off some trees that were in the way and missing the trap. But when I got it in, I nearly got my Tyranidon stuck, which was scary, as this easily could have been the death of me. But the Allosaurus was in now, so I quickly landed my Tyranidon down by the corner so that the Allosaurus could try and munch on it for a bit, and this would distract it. I hopped off my Tyranidon, leaving it in place, and hoped that the Allosaurus would continue attacking it. It did, so I snuck around, shut the door, and trapped the Allosaurus. With that done, I could now start knocking the Allosaurus out. This took ages and used over 60 of my 80 trank arrows. Towards the end, I was getting scared that I would run out and I'd have to go back to my base and craft more, by which point it probably would have lost all its torpor and I'd have to restart the entire process all over again. However, it fell down eventually, and that was good because it meant I could start taming. However, I did still have to go and get some prime meat to tame it up quickly and with the maximum efficiency, and that lasted all the way into the beginning of day 10. In the morning of day 10, I returned to my Allosaurus and gave it some meat that I'd collected overnight by killing a couple of Brontosaurus. This went well and nearly tamed the Allosaurus up in a single bite. However, I'd actually left the meat on my Tyranidon, so I got it, put it in its inventory, and it ate one piece. I waited for the animation to finish to see if it would eat the other straight away, but no, I did have to wait a few more seconds. So I waited for that to tame up, and then I went and got the other Allosaurus that was near the castle and lured it over. Later on, I eventually managed to get the 150 male Allosaurus back to the trap, but it took over 10 minutes because it was constantly running off and attacking everything else. However, then disaster struck. A pack of 4 saber-toothed tigers had spawned right next to my trap while I was gone, and these started attacking the Allosaurus once my Tyranidon was out of aggro range. Then, these Dinonicus joined in as well, and this did not bode well for the Allo. He was a 150, but everything else was just doing too much damage to him put together, and pretty quickly he died. This was a tragedy as it meant that I wouldn't be able to tame him and use him to breed. I continued exploring the plains for the rest of the day, and I came across a 130 wild Griffin. That was definitely something to think about taming later, but I didn't have the resources on me right now to do it, and I was still looking for a high-level male Allosaurus. I collected a few drops, and I didn't really find anything good though, and I just kept flying over this river, having a look at everything, until eventually I found a cave a bit later on in the day. I also checked a few Carnos, but none of these were a high level either. I was just going down to collect this purple drop, and it had nothing good in it, sadly. Only a fabricator blueprint. But I had seen a cave on my way down, just carved into the mountainside. Had a bunch of purple crystals poking out the side of it, so that looked pretty cool. So I decided to throw out my Carno and investigate. As soon as I went in, I saw that there were aberration creatures in this cave. There was a Ravager and a few glowbugs. I killed the Ravager pretty easily, as this one appeared to just be by itself and didn't do too much damage to me. My Carno's swipe attack was really good because as well as inflicting bleed, it also did heaps of knockback, which is easily capable of keeping creatures like Ravagers and Raptors out of attack range. This cave was really cool though, and it had a bunch of blue gems, which were a resource I might need later, as well as aberration and root materials. I was just glad that it didn't have radiation in here, as that would have meant I couldn't have explored further. Up in the distance I saw a Concavenator, which is a creature added by the Archeditions mod. I've never actually fought one of these before, and then suddenly I got attacked from behind by Ravagers. I assume these were in the same pack as the one that I'd killed earlier, but they just escaped my vision somehow. However, they were both low level, so they died pretty easily. Then the Concavenator started attacking me as well, using its tail to throw up sand and blind me. These things are so annoying to fight, as they constantly run away and throw up sand. This sand blinds you and makes you move super slowly for a while, which makes it so annoying to fight these things. If you stay in it for long enough, it also suffocates your player, which can kill you off the back of your mount. So I had to keep running out of the sand and turning around before the Concavenator could come back, and then landing a few hits before it would run away again. This took ages to fight these things, but I eventually managed to kill it. After killing the Concavenator, I continued past a couple of sleeping Megalosaurus further into the cave. I also saw a Featherlight, which was good, because I wanted to tame one of those later on, as you can put them on your shoulder and they look really cool. As I was crossing this crystal bridge, I got attacked by another Concavenator, which I fought, but just as like the other one, it was a pain to fight it as it kept running away and throwing up sand. Up a bit further again, I found some more Featherlights and some red gems. These are really cool creatures as they create light, which is useful for exploring dark places, and it also helps against Reapers and Nameless, which are enemies from Aberration that might spawn on this map. I haven't seen any yet, but I'm not sure. I tried to passively tame some of these Featherlights using Mega Berries, but they wouldn't accept it. So I kept trying, but no, none of them would. And they were all low levels anyway, so I left them alone, and then I went to go collect some red gems, as I might need some of these later. I just am not 100% sure whether or not I will actually be able to craft aberration items, as I don't have the DLC on this computer, but oh well, still worth grabbing the gems just in case I can. After getting the gems, I continue heading down the cave when I see a pack of Ravagers. I decide to fight them, assuming that they're low levels and will die easily, but oh boy, was I wrong. I continue hitting them with my Carno, knocking them back, but together they do so much damage and continually stun lock me and knock me back, which prevents most of my attacks from even getting launched in the first place. I get pinned against a wall, which really messes up the camera angle, and into a position where I can't even hit them because they're all behind me. I'm taking very heavy damage here and my Carno's nearly dead already, but luckily I get knocked up onto this ledge where they apparently can't reach me. However, my Carno's nearly dead and is bleeding out. That was way too close, but these two are still down here attacking me. I tentatively step down and try to attack them, but I'm out of range. It seems that as soon as I get in range, they are also in range and will hit me, but trading hits like that is definitely preferable to what was happening before, so I repeat this slowly until I kill them both. There goes the first one, and it was a level 140, which explains why it was doing so much damage and had so much health. I continue killing the last one until they're both dead. After killing the Ravagers, I continue through the cave when I see a Carcanos. These crabs are quite tanky, but don't do too much damage. However, the main danger they have is that they can grab you off the back of your mount. So to counter this, I hop off my mount and hope that my Carno is going to attack the Carcanos. However, it doesn't, and it just stays put because I whistle it to stop accidentally. The Carcanos lands a few hits on me, but it doesn't do too much damage as I have flak armor. I whistle my Carno onto neutral, but no, it's not following me, and the Carcanos manages to grab me, which is disastrous. It continues spamming me as I try to put my Allosaurus on my hotbar, and I throw it out of the ball in the hopes that it will continue attacking the Carcanos. However, I'm taking really high damage, and all my armor breaks, which means that I'm taking even more damage, and I die, which is terrible, because to get back in here, I'll have to get past all those enemies again, and that's just gonna be a nightmare. I decide to respawn back at my base in the hopes that I have the materials to make another Tyranidon Saddle, and can just use one of my spare Pteranodons to get back, but no. I didn't have enough chitin, so I had to go on a massive chitin run to get everything that I needed to make another saddle. Day 10 begins to come to a close just as I get the chitin I need to make cementing paste and craft myself a gravestone. I decided that this was much easier than flying back on my Pteranodon, as it will allow me to instantly recover my corpse. However, it does still mean that I'll have to go back and get my dinosaurs at some later point, but that will probably mean taming another big carnivore so I can get through the cave again up to the point where they were. Thanks for watching, guys. I think I'm going to end the video here at 10 days, as it's quite long already. The next one will either be the next 20 and the next 30 days, depending on how long this video lasts for. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.